Namo Myo Renge Kyo. Hi, everyone. How are you doing? I hope this finds you in good health and secure. We had some tornadoes go right through town yesterday or last night, and some damage from that. Not right here in our locale, but just north of us, just a few miles away. Nothing like the devastation that happened a week ago or so, further south from us. But still, terrible damage just the same. Namo Myo Renge Kyo. I haven't heard of any injuries or deaths, dare I say. But somehow, I don't know where I got this impression exactly, but I feel so. I don't know if that I have the right words here, but having this school and all of this commitment, it's not just this mandala, it's the Gohonzon, the larger scope of understanding life and being deeply appreciative of the mechanisms, the engine of life, somehow turns into a feeling of not silly, not magical, not metaphysical protection, but a sense of a sort of a protection. I just feel safe. I don't want to be ignorant about it. I know when there's these storms, and that I live in an area where this school is that goes through yearly potential pathways of tornadoes, let alone hurricanes from time to time. But Namo Myo Renge Kyo. I just feel like, and it gets pretty darn close to our location, but always seems to go above us, below us, around us. Not that we don't get hit with severe weather and winds and so forth. Anyway, enough blah, blah, blah on that. This is about Nichiren, and this is about Shakyamuni's Buddhism, and I've been trying to you can see my neck. I don't want to make a big thing out of it. I don't think you can see it that much, but in case you're wondering what's going on there, I'm recovering from neck surgery and fusion, and and as you can tell, I still have a lot of swelling in my throat and affecting my voice. But as long as I'm able, I'm going to continue making these videos. And we are in the midst of, a good beginning anyway, on this assemblage of gosho's I put together into this book form of Nichiren on Mandala and Gohonzon. It's an important distinction. It's not even so much a distinction as they're not the same thing. They're very different concepts. And even though in the last couple of videos, a lot of Nichiren's discussion, and this is the main point I want you to take away from these discussions, is that when he's talking about the condition of the nation and the people and the epidemics and these disasters happening in Japan, and you see how this relates to the tornadoes and so forth we've been dealing with recently here in this area, that they're not distinct from our own personal life experience, right? We tend to think in terms of there's me and then there's everything else, or there's me and there's other in a more general sense, other being other people as well as other energies, other entities, so on and so forth. But one of the critical points of Buddhism from Shakyamuni is that that's an illusion, that we're all very much interconnected. You may see a little gnat or mosquito flying through frame. It just did. Anyways, a lot of humidity and disturbances, so sorry, an aside. My point is that when we talk about mandala, we're talking about a physical focus. I don't want to use if you're going to talk about an object as a noun, that's the mandala. But the mandala, the calling it a mandala, other than a scroll or a picture, that's a noun. But the mandala imbues that thing, that object, with a meaningful purpose. So when Nichiren talks about the mandala, and he talks about the Lotus Sutra, and he talks about Gohonzon, all of these terms, they're easily misused and misunderstood because there's a conversation about the noun, the object, as a thing, to direct your attention, samsaric attention, to something else that's going on. The fact that this object that he's created, Nichiren created, is being used as a mandala, a portal of sorts, a spark. It's like it's like firewood, right? Firewood isn't just wood. Firewood has an intent built into it. But if you analyze that wood chemically or physically or in any way that you could define the wood, the quality of its being firewood would be unidentifiable unless you identified that firewood as its own definition of some wood, some kind of wood, or some kind of kindling, right? Kindling is another word that identifies a certain aspect, potential of something. But it's not a quality of it in and of itself, right? Firewood or kindling is about a use case for something. Do you see? So calling that a mandala can be misunderstood with words as a noun that is that scroll and the concepts written on it. Same as calling them words, which is missing the point. You can translate those calligraphies into words, but those words are just fingers pointing. They are not the thing. So when we read, quote unquote, Namo Myoho Renge Kyo down the center of this scroll, right? We are seeing this scroll as an object with calligraphy on it and using our samsaric minds, defining with words the concepts that Namo Myoho Renge Kyo represent. But it's not the words. It's the concepts. So to consider the concepts and the construct pictured on this scroll of the teachings of the Lotus is to then talk about the mandala aspect of the scroll. You see that division happening already? Again, I'm always telling you, Buddhism is about attitude and intent, right? So the importance of this scroll isn't the paper that it's on. It's not the characters that are on the paper. It's the conceptual ideas in total that are being referenced for mental perception that are the important part of this scroll. And that That is not the scroll itself. It is the aspect of the scroll that we call mandala, right? Just like kindling isn't a specific kind of wood or property of the wood. It's a complete use case for that lump wood, whatever kindling. When it is lighted, when energy is put to it, for it to then provide as, function as, then it becomes kindling, as it is kindling, verb. Follow? So that's all about mandala. But then that slides word-wise into Gohonzon, which is not mandala. Mandala is that, just like the kindling isn't the point. Heating the room, providing heat, energy as heat, that's the goal. And just by looking at dry pieces of wood, whether they're birch or oak or newspaper, the heat is the heat. You can't observe wadded up newspaper or rolled newspaper or certain pieces of wood as heat. You obviously know those are not the same thing. Just like Mandala and Gohonzon, not the same thing. Mandala is a critical piece for our samsaric practice to be directed toward the accomplishment of something else. Just like kindling is necessary to start a fire from which we can derive, discover, experience heat. Makes sense? So mandala, our intent using this scroll to attain, to awaken, to discover, to experience through it, its use with our minds, to experience, to awaken Gohonzon, enlightenment, Buddha-ness. That's Gohonzon. So a lot of conversation in Nichiren doesn't repeat this because he's busy explaining the ground on which we experience. Whether it's the sicknesses and epidemics and weather patterns of Japan, or it is his talking about filial piety, the ways we experience our life, right? Our samsaric life, our physicalness. It is within that we have always the potential for Buddha-ness, that it is built in. You could say that the heat is built into the kindling and the firewood, but it is not expressed and it is not experienced without some samsaric effort in order to then, in that use case, provide for it to instantiate. The potential is always there. Gohonzon. Right? So I say all of that because it's easy to miss it. And the reason this discussion is in this book is because Nichiren is defining these different aspects of our experience of life. And he's marrying it with the experience of Buddhism, which is not a separate thing. It is an enlightened view of experiencing these things, these samsaric conditions and tendencies, use cases. So he goes on, or I go on. He says, among the 10 directions, all the people in Japan aspire to the West. So does that mean there's a beach in the West everyone wants to go to? No, this is a mental, a philosophical, an urge, right? Among all the Buddhas, they revere Amida Buddha, and among all practices, they invoke Amida's name. So he's defined it even further. It's not the direction so much. It's the ideology of the West is, the sun rises in the east, but it crosses the sky and goes to the west. So the West provides kind of a future. So if you're going to change your life, you move toward the future. So the West becomes conceptually this idea of where we're going. And Amida Buddha captures in Shakyamuni's personages of mental states this idea of attaining that future, that better moment. But as we've discussed many times, life, death, death is a moment-to-moment instantiation of potential. And that potential for instantiating Buddha-ness is constantly present, but instantiating it is the whole point. Just because it's there doesn't mean it's happening. Just because you have kindling does not mean you have heat. Something needs to participate, make effort in order for that transition to occur. Some make these 3 concerns their basis, yet engage in other practices, while others devote themselves to the Nembutsu alone. In the more than 20 years since the 5th year of the Kensho era, 1253, up until the present, I have first clarified the Buddha's lifetime teachings in terms of their relative merit, sequence of preaching, and profundity, and upon that basis I have asserted the superiority of the Daimoku of the Lotus Sutra over the invocation of the name of Amida Buddha. Right? He's described this ad nauseum, that Amida is just a made-up Buddha, a personage, an aspect of being that Shakyamuni invented in order to illustrate several points of his teaching. He's not an actual person, right? Whereas the Lotus Sutra, the Myoho Renge-kyo, is Shakyamuni saying, look, this is how I enlightened. This is the method I use to achieve Buddha-ness, which is not me, but any sentient mind can experience, and now you can do the same. So it is the very Buddha that is Buddha-ness, without a name qualifier, like one Buddha is better than another. That's ridiculousness. Buddha is Buddha. It's a state of experience, right? So he's saying, I've showed this over and over again, and yet no one, from the ruler on down to the common people, has heeded my words. Even if they, well, obviously some he has followers, but he's saying even amongst those who claim to read and recite the Lotus Sutra, the Myoho Renge-kyo, they don't invest in it, right? It's like they walk around the firewood and they say, yeah, that's kindling and you can make heat from it, but they never bother to use it. So how can they get heat? They rather go over here and do other things and pray to things and kick buckets or whatever the hell they're doing, hoping to achieve heat, and they'll never get there. Because even though they know about this, and they claim to recite, maybe they do recite it, but they don't invest their truth in it. They don't invest their energy into it. It's just another collection of stuff that they know or they own. But meanwhile, Oh, yeah, they fully invest themselves in praying to the West and reciting Amida Buddha's name over and over and over again, or Zen, or whatever, or true word. And that's just empty. That's like believing in Santa Claus. Maybe it gives them some weird sort of comfort, but they're never going to get anywhere with it. But they're not listening. They're not actualizing, right? So he's lamenting that. They have questioned their teachers about me, because obviously what they're doing isn't working. So they have to go to their teachers and say, I'm doing this. I'm being a good this or that follower. What about this guy, though? What, is he talking about anything of merit? Well, you're asking a teacher who abhors the truth, who's very happy in their position of power and leadership, to controvert their power over you. What are they going to say about Nichiren? Oh, don't listen to him, right? What else would they say? So they asked their teachers about me, appealed to their lords, talked with their companions, and spoken to their wives, children, and retainers, so that rumors concerning me have spread to every province, district, village, and hamlet, as well as to their temples and shrines. Yeah? Because nobody wants to heed the one who's saying, Emperor's naked. Right? We don't believe in our stuff. Don't listen to him. Right? Nichiren's quite frustrated by all of this. And what's he talking about here? The difference between Mandala and Gohonzon. Think about it. Nichiren is obviating Gohonzon, portal, Buddha-ness, as directly accessible. Whereas all these other teachers are saying, no. Don't look at that. Don't even look at that mandala. It is just baloney. He's talking about something that that'll happen after you die, your next life, right? Or you'll intellectualize it. They're making Nichiren the bad thing. They're demonizing him. This is nothing new in history, right? As a result, everyone has come to know my name, and they all say that if one compares the Myoho Renge-kyo with the Nembutsu is superior, and the Lotus Sutra is no match for it, and that other monks are worthy of respect while I am contemptible. We've heard this over and over again, right? So the ruler regards me with hostility. The people have come to hate me. They don't even know why, but they're fed this hate. And all Japan has become a great foe of both the Lotus Sutra and its votary. But if I say this, not only the people of Japan in general, but also the ignorant among my followers will think that I am inventing groundless falsehoods in an attempt to make people have confidence in me. I'm the great trickster. I am saying all this, however, for the benefit of those men and women who have confidence in the principles of Buddhism, and I will leave it to them to judge for themselves. That's a very important statement. That grunting you hear is my poor little dog. She has nasal troubles. You okay, Chloe? Yes, my baby. Okay. The King Wonderful Adornment chapter of the Myoho Renge-kyo, the Lotus Sutra, is especially applicable to women, for it explains how a wife encouraged by her husband, in the latter age as well, though her name may differ, a wife who leads her husband to take resolve will enjoy the same benefit as Lady Pure Virtue. All the more fortunate is a case like yours, in which both wife and husband has resolve. It is like a bird possessing two wings, or a cart having two wheels. What is there that you cannot achieve? Because there is heaven and earth, a sun and moon, the sun shines and the rain falls, and the plants and trees of benefit will surely blossom and bear fruit. Next we come to the encouragements chapter. Now, if you don't think, or if I haven't been clear enough, oh boy, I hope I last through this. I bolded this section out because I want to show you that we are talking about Gohonzon and Mandala, but as two distinct things. So let's go into it. He quotes the encouragement chapters of the Lotus Sutra. Though there were many monks among the disciples of Shakyamuni Buddha, Mahakashyapa and Ananda always accompanied him on his right and left, just like the ministers of the right and left who attend the ruler. This was when the Buddha expounded the Hinayana Sutras. Moreover, among all the innumerable bodhisattvas, Universal Worthy and Manjushri were distinguished as the ministers of the right and left of Shakyamuni Buddha. It was strange, therefore, that Bodhisattva Universal Worthy, one of Shakyamuni's two ministers, should be absent during the 8 years when the Buddha expounded the Lotus Sutra, which surpasses all the other sutras of his lifetime teachings, in the ceremony where the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas of the 10 directions gathered in numbers exceeding those of the dust particles of the land. But when the King Wonderful Adornment chapter had been expounded and the preaching of the Lotus Sutra was drawing to a close, Bodhisattva Universal Worthy came hurrying belatedly from the land of the Buddha King Purity of the jeweled dignity and virtue in the east, accompanied by the sounds of the 10,000 million musical instruments, and leading a retinue of countless numbers of 8 kinds of non-human beings. Probably fearing the Buddha's displeasure at his tardy arrival, he assumed a serious expression and pledged in all earnestness to protect the votaries of the Lotus Sutra in the latter age, right? The bodhisattvas from beneath the earth, yeah? The Buddha, no doubt pleased with Universal Worthy's extraordinary sincerity, in vowing to spread the Lotus Sutra throughout the continent of Jambudvipa, thereupon praised him more warmly, in fact, than he had earlier praised the other bodhisattvas of higher rank. It is no ordinary thing for a woman in the latter age to have resolved to make an offering to each of the 28 chapters of this wonderful Lotus Sutra, right? A physical thing, at the ceremony of the Treasure Tower chapter. The thus come one's many treasures in Shakyamuni, the Buddhas of the 10 directions, and all the bodhisattvas gathered together. When I ponder where this Treasure Tower chapter is now, so now is he talking about a chapter in a book, or is he talking about the concept of the treasure tower? Where is it now? I see that it exists in the 8-petaled lotus flower of the heart within the breast of Nichiren, the woman to whom he's addressing this letter. Do you see how the treasure tower, the Gohonzon experience of Buddha-ness, exists within the body of, in this case, who he's talking to, but he's talking to all of us. Right? This is Gohonzon. Whereas the book, the Lotus Sutra, the chapters are functioning as mandala, which is what Nichiren creates in this scroll, capturing each of the concepts within the Lotus Sutra. But the concepts are mandala. The book, the the characters, those are the scroll, the calligraphy of the scroll. They identify, samsaric identification, the concepts, mandala, of the Gohonzon pre-existing to be experienced and discovered within our own life experience. This is like the lotus seed containing the lotus flower within it, or a consort carrying a crown prince in her womb, or like kindling providing heat. It's an emergent property, a potential to be manifested with effort, with energy applied. See? When someone, having observed the 10 good precepts, is destined to be born a crown prince and awaits his birth in the consort's womb, the heavenly deities will protect him. See, the language of this, it sounds mystical. It's an English translation, for one thing, but even in its original conversations, trying to use the world around us and our samsaric experience to identify the process. That if you do anything well, then can you not also say that the accomplishment of whatever that thing is done well is supported by the environment in which it occurs? How could it not? See, it's not mystical. It's just a very clear understanding of how everything is connected, right? Everything. You take an empty glass and submerge it in water, the glass is full. But do you think of the glass being full if it's submerged completely in water? Or do you only think of the glass as being full when you take it out of being submerged and you retain water within the boundaries of the cup? There's kind of a break of understanding happening there. Do you see it? That is why a crown prince is called the son of heaven, because the barrier of potential and instantiation is a manufactured one. Each of the 69,384 characters of the 28 chapters of the Lotus Sutra is like a crown prince and is the seed of a Buddha. The seed of a Buddha, not the Buddha, the seed of a Buddha. Just like the kindling, all kindling is a seed of heat. It requires your commitment, your ichinen, your effort, your resolve to spark the heat, the Buddha-ness. And how do we do that? Simple. Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. Oh, man, I'm sorry. Yeah, I've run out of tolerance. But, I mean, we covered a lot of ground today, yeah? So we're going to continue. There are shadows in the darkness, but people cannot discern them. Again, talking about this potential, always there, but must be instantiated. And in order to instantiate, it must be gathered, sparked. Some action must be taken. And in the case of Buddhahood, that action is our resolute effort, demands, action to instantiate. Just because it's there doesn't mean you'll experience it, just like anything else. All right. We got a good ways. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. Thank you especially for your practice. And of course, help us expand our Sangha by liking, subscribing, very important to the algorithms, the whole YouTube thing. Those of you who've purchased ebooks, thank you so much, and print books. Those of you who donate through PayPal or through Patreon membership, there's no cost. I didn't make anything default cost for Patreon, but it is an engine through which you can do so. All of these videos are available on Patreon as well as they are on Odyssey.com if you're familiar with that platform. And of course, the audio podcasts, wherever you get your podcast, the Buddhahood podcast, yeah. So thank you. I'm going to go rest my neck and throat and eat some soup. In the meantime, please take care of your health. Keep your practice strong. You guys are awesome. I'm so impressed with you. Keep it up. And I will continue to heal. And we will have some more of this excerpts from this book on Nichiren and Mandala and Gohonzon. Until then, bye for now.